Back in a minute.
All right. Well, tonight's teaching time is actually going to be very interactive, so you guys are going to be doing a lot. But as we start off, I want you to answer one question for me. And you can break up into groups. I'm going to give you about 5-10 minutes. I want you to come up with a definition for what is the gospel. I want you to answer the question, what is the gospel? And you're going to come up with your own definition for that. So take 5-10 minutes, whatever it takes you, and we'll get into it. So, break. Okay, so who would like to go first? Who would like to go first in saying what the gospel is?
Arthur can go first.
Okay. I'm going to try to, so as you're saying, I'm going to try to see you some tenets in that you're hitting. What would you say the gospel is?
Well, first, it's a narrative. In that, in the beginning, you had God. He created the world.
Okay.
At that point, we were all one with Him. In a way, we were sinless. So you have the creation of man, and then you have man's sins, and that you have the fall. So at that point, you have separation from God.
Okay.
And at that point, you have God puts a plan into effect to restore man to God, and that's sending Jesus Christ, His only Son, who lived a perfect life.
Oh, okay. So Jesus. Okay. So perfect life.
Perfect life. Died/rose. At that point, you then have ascended into heaven. So ascended.
Okay.
Just make sure it hit all the spots. And now at this point you have the possibility for restoration with the Lord.
Okay.
Which is made possible.
Did you have all this written down there?
Well, they kind of wrote it, but
Okay, go ahead.
And which is made possible by believing and trusting in the Lord.
Okay.
Believing that Christ's death is in the sufficiency of Christ's death and resurrection.
And then
Okay.
return.
Believe in His
Okay.
belief and trust, not just belief.
Okay. Well,
I said return.
There's still more.
In return. And when I say restoration, what that eventually means is it's eternal life with the Father, all things new. Did I cover everything?
Good gospel. That's a good gospel.
all right.
I hit it.
So, it's a narrative of God creating. We're one with God, sin in the fall. There's a plan to restore, though, and that plan is Jesus. He lived a perfect life, died, rose again, and ascended. And that was to bring restoration with God, and it comes about trust in Jesus, His sufficiency, trust and believe. And that one day He's going to return also, and He's going to bring eternal life and all things made new. Okay, good. How about you guys? What do you got?
It's an acronym. Well, we wrote down an acronym that basically said all of that.
What's your acronym?
Well, it's not really an acronym.
Well, what is it?
It's CFI PL. Well, no, PL is together. It's a really good acronym. DRAC.
Okay, what's
Sifipildrek.
okay? What's C?
Creation,
Okay,
fall, incarnation, perfect life, died, resurrection, ascension.
no, they don't. Go ahead.
Coming.
I don't always claim to be the best speller, so all right. So creation, fall. Okay, so explain this to me real quick.
That God made everything He created everything perfectly. Man fell into sin, so God incarnated as Jesus of Nazareth, lived a perfect life, died for the sins of the people that didn't live perfectly, resurrected, proved that he had conquered sin and death, ascended into heaven, he sits at the right hand of God the Father, and he will come again to judge the living and the dead.
Okay.
I feel like there could be a B at the end for belief.
Okay.
So let's see all that and then say
Which is where Matt Rip did those scripts.
Okay. Well, you do that for me. Walk that one through that one for me.
so you have a line.
Or just walk. I mean,
yeah, so you have-
I've seen that. Yeah.
God created everything, it was perfect.
Okay.
And he created man and woman, and they had a relationship with God. And then man sinned against God, which separated mankind's relationship with God. So that cursed all of man, and all of man have now sinned, which is from Romans 3:23. And so there's separation between man and God. And because of the wages of sin is death, so because man has sinned, man deserves eternal separation from God. But because of that, God was made manifest, the Word was made manifest, he became like a man, and he lived a perfect life, and he died for sinners on the cross, which is from Romans 5:8. And he resurrected. And so the bridge illustration has man on this side and God on this side, and then the cross in the middle connecting them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, you got God, you got man, okay. And
then God comes to man, so there's
is it a rainbow?
yeah. And then you believe in God, then you receive his free gift, which is eternal life in Christ Jesus.
Okay. So, question: what do you notice? What are some things in here that I guess? So, tell me. Gospel means good news. So, what would you say is the good news to somebody? It's a little bit different. Like that's saying like, what is the gospel? What would you say is in the gospel it being good news? What would you say is good news? It is good news that
You have the promise of eternal life.
okay, good news that you have promise of eternal life. Okay,
Promise of right standing for God.
promise of right standing before God.
You
Okay,
should not perish.
okay, there wouldn't be any perishing. Okay,
Promise of freedom.
okay, promise of freedom. Freedom from what? I mean,
Having to be in sinful behavior,
okay,
or freedom from guilt from past sinful behavior.
okay,
Freedom from finding your identity in anything besides God.
I think the good news that God is making everything perfect. Again, there's that plan for him to restore everything.
Like the restoration. I mean, it's the grand fix, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to fix everything.
Okay, I think a lot of times. I mean, you all, if you notice, you came up with, they may be in a slightly different order, but you came up with kind of the similar thing. A lot of times we have the gospel and we present it. But I guess I want to ask you, do you think there might be anything missing? And especially as I get down here to, what do you see happens between this and this, or this one actually just, I mean, you got this, you have it here between belief and coming. Here you've got belief, and I guess it ends, I mean, so you got belief, is there anything that's between?
Spirit.
Do you think there's anything that you might have, when we talk about good news that may be missing from a lot of our definitions of what good news is? This all the good news? Is the good news? Because I see restoration, right? That's a good one. Restoration. I mean, this one. I guess what's the in this one? What's the good news in this list? What's the good news? Nothing. I'm just curious. What's the good news here?
That he died for our sins.
Okay.
He resurrected, victory over death.
Okay, so died for sin, and there's victory over death, victory over sin. Okay, because of the resurrection. Okay. Now, how about here? You got died for sin, right? God came to man, right? So it's kind of that relationship. But like I said, is there anything that's missing? Because I think what we focus a lot of times on the gospel is I would say that this is a very key, critical part of the gospel. And I think it's this is very common, but I think this picture of the gospel is actually missing something. When I talk about good news, is my only good news that I've got my sin paid for, that I don't have to fear death anymore? Is that my good news? And that one day, maybe, I guess, if we could say, is that one day, sometime off in the future, that I'll be resurrected?
I think, I don't know if this is coming right, but just one thing that I was thinking when you were writing it out, was holiness in regards to being not only is my sin covered, or like, is removed, but I no longer have to. I'm now holy, and so I'm able to make the choices, whereas before I wasn't able.
Is that good news?
I would think so.
I think that's
For me,
really
it's
good news. I think that's good news.
Yeah.
I would agree with you.
My first thought is piggybacking off of what she said. It's a journey, but it's because when we become believers, there's that positional sanctification at the point of salvation, where now you know you're going for eternal life, you have Jesus and everything, but then you have progressive sanctification that through life will be progressively sanctified. I mean, you'll never be perfect in this life. When you're with the Lord, then you're perfect. So, go along with the holiness, that's good news. You're not having to, if you're Neo, you don't have to live in the Matrix anymore.
If this is good news, and I would claim that it is, why do you think this was left out in your gospel presentations? I mean, if you're just thinking about it, why do you think that's something that was left out?
I think a lot of times our sense of what is the gospel, or for a gospel presentation, it just focuses on like the justification side of things. Like if you take that, we all got that part.
Yeah, and that's very strong.
Yeah. But thinking about sanctification and holiness, that's like a separate category.
We got to think, it's the same thing. Sanctification, holiness, they come from the same root in Greek. So sanctification, being made holy, basically, holiness.
When we're talking about, what we just put down, it's the easier part, because the only thing it called for you to do was admit that you're a sinner. I mean, literally you went from death to life. That's the easy part. The part, and I don't know if it's, I don't share this in the gospel because it's the harder part, because I don't think about that way, but the harder part is the sanctification, as from day one you believe until you die. That's the hard part. That's what really takes work and growth.
And I think sometimes we think of the gospel is just the thing that saves people. Like, this person's not a believer, they need the gospel.
Yeah.
And they need the gospel of justification. And then after that gospel, then there's all the other stuff that doesn't need the gospel. I don't know, we kind of separate the gospel.
And we kind of separate the rest of our Christian life a lot of time. We make gospel about this, we got a timeline here, is like, this is who I was, gospel, and then I say there's other stuff. and then, resurrection. Yeah. But is the gospel just right here?
Well, I think kind of going off of what Chase said, God doesn't just save us, but He also sustains us with His Spirit. I think that's the good news in that is that God doesn't just remove our sin, but that He also gives us the power to go out to chase after His desires, to love Him by obeying His commandments.
I agree. And so what I want to do, I want to get, before I get into what I want to talk about, I think there is something right here that is a huge part of the gospel, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. Now, it's just that this is a kind of a passion of mine, is there's more, I think, to the gospel that we a lot of times leave out, or we kind of save it for later. And I've done my job if I've gotten somebody who's quote-unquote saved. I've done my job in the gospel.
Could it be that we have an issue of, we think of the words gospel and salvation synonymous with the exact same thing, whereas salvation is part of the gospel, which is like
It's
we
a
were
part of it,
focusing on.
yes. I would agree. I think that's a very good thing. So I want to give just a little bit of background. I want to do some Old Testament background, then I'm going to make my case. I want to show you that I think the gospel is more than just what Christ has done for us. So I want you to turn to Genesis chapter 12. You all will be very familiar with these verses, so I'm going to go through these kind of quickly. I just want to hit some of the major points on them. Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. Somebody want to read those?
1 through 3.
12, 1 through 3.
Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all of the families of the earth shall be blessed."
Okay, there's really three promises God makes to Abram here. So when we got, from the fall, you've got, we all mentioned that there was sin that entered the world, fall, and so God is going to do, you all said, a narrative of how He's going to restore things, how He's going to make things right again. I think this is one of the very key early points in the Bible where God points to how He's going to make things right, how He's going to restore it. And now there's three promises here, but what one kind of sticks out above all the others? What one seems to kind of, there's something that seems to stick out in these verses a lot more than others. What is it?
Blessing.
A blessing, right? I mean, you see it over and over. I will bless you. What else did He say? So I will bless you. I will bless those who bless you, right? You're gonna bless others. Anybody that treats you lightly, I'm going to curse. All the families in the earth are going to bless one another by your name, right? There's a whole lot of blessing God's going to say He's going to do through Abraham, right? Through Abram here. He's going to be a blessing. Now, this is a step. This is known as the Abrahamic covenant. God starts it here, but He doesn't see it to its fulfillment. And you kind of jump forward. I'm going to just do some of these, just some background. I want you to jump forward to 2 Samuel chapter 7. Because God said He was going to be Abram and his descendants were going to be a blessing to the nation. But knowing the Old Testament, did they do a very good job of that? No. It says they were going to be a blessing to who again? The whole earth. Well, if you know the history of the Israelites, they never really traveled much further than their promised land, did they? They didn't even actually fill up their own promised land that God gave them, let alone go out from there much. They didn't do a great job of being a blessing to the world. So what God's going to do, God's going to show a promise that He's going to do something extra. 2 Samuel chapter 7. I want you to look in verse, somebody want to read from me verses 12 through 16. 12 through 16. There's more to it than this, but for time's sake, I'm going to shorten it.
I can read it. When your days are complete and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your descendant after you, who will come forth from you, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. When he commits iniquity, I will correct him with the rod of men and the strokes of the sons of men. But my loving kindness shall not depart from him, as I took it away from Saul, whom I removed from before you. Your house and your kingdom shall endure before me forever. Your throne shall be established forever.
Okay, so what's he saying here? He says, and notice this word shows up again. It was up in Genesis, right? You have descendants. I'm going to send you now, not descendants that are going to bless, but I'm going to send a descendant. Someone who's going to sit upon the throne forever, right? I'll be a father to him. He'll get a son, right? He'll build a house for my name. He will have a kingdom that will be established. Right? But my loyal love will not be removed from him as it did from Saul. Your house and your kingdom will stand, what? Permanently for your dynasty. There's one that's coming that's going to take this idea of blessing, that restoration that was the fall of man, where we were separated. God was going to bless his people. He's going to restore that. Now he's saying he's going to do it through a descendant. But there's one other step, though, too. He has another promise. Jump with me. We're going to have, this is actually a twofold one. Jeremiah 31. Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34. I want you to notice the part of this promise here that God makes. Chapter 31, verses 31 through 34. Somebody want to read that?
Behold, days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Not like the covenant which I made with their fathers in the day I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. My covenant which they broke, although I was a husband to them, declares the Lord. But this is the covenant which I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. I will put my law within them, and on their heart I will write it, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. They will not teach again each man his neighbor and each man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they will all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity and their sin, and I will remove them no more.
All right, so just give me what are some quick major points that you saw that God said he's going to do, some promises that he's going to make?
Make a new covenant.
Okay, it's a new covenant. And what are some aspects of this new covenant? It's not like the old one, which was broken, right?
Well, he will make it by putting his law in their heart.
Okay, put the law in their heart. Okay, what else?
They won't teach one another because they will all know him.
They'll know God, right? What else?
The iniquity be forgiven.
Okay, forgive sins, right? And or iniquity, any time frame?
No
Huh?
I will remember their sin no more.
So this is
more.
forever, right here. Okay. Forever. So there's a new law in their heart. They'll know God. Their sins are going to be forgiven forever, and it's part of this new covenant, right? Okay, jump to the next book, Ezekiel. Jump over to Ezekiel 36. God's going to further, explain this covenant, this new covenant that He's going to make. 36 verses 25 to 27. Somebody want to read that one?
I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean from all your uncleanness, and from all your idols I will cleanse you. And I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you. And I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and give you a heart of flesh. How far?
Through 27.
Okay. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and be careful to obey my rules.
Okay, so what are some other things he's mentioning here?
Putting a spirit within them.
Okay, so he said, I'll put a new spirit, right?
Yep.
And what does he say with that even further? What is that new spirit?
His spirit.
Yeah. His spirit, right? I will put my spirit in you. I'll give you a new spirit. I'm going to put my spirit in you. Not like the old one.
And a new heart.
Okay. So a new heart again. Nope.
So he'll cause his people to obey.
So we see again, so now we see obedience. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? What's he say? So a new heart, what's he say about the old heart?
He will remove the heart of stone.
Okay. So the old one's gone. Right? Anything else maybe at the beginning?
Sprinkle clean.
Okay. He's going to cleanse us. There's a lot here, right? There's a lot going on. So he's making this promise. So he's going to bless the world. And this is a simplification of the Old Testament. But he's going to bless the world, but he's going to do it through one descendant. And when that descendant comes and does what he's going to do, he's going to make a new covenant with the people, right? That when he makes that new covenant, what's he going to do? He's going to give all of these things. He's going to give a new heart, put the law in their hearts so they would obey it. Give a new spirit, his spirit, so we could be cleansed, we could be forgiven of sins, that it not be remembered anymore, and that we would know him, right? Now, question, does any of this sound, I would say, does any of this sound like good news?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but looking at this list, what do a lot of our gospel presentations, and I'd say that was very typical, what do a lot of times they focus on? What things were mentioned in our gospel presentations?
Out of this list?
Yeah,
No, God.
that one was, I think knowing God, right, that restoration.
Sometimes that you're a new person, so new with the old gone.
Okay, yeah, some new and old gone, okay.
Cleanse.
Okay, the cleanse, it kind of goes, but
The Spirit's left out.
the Spirit and a law in our heart that in obedience are kind of left out a lot of times. But this is God saying, I'm going to give you a covenant. I'm going to make a new covenant so you'll be able to experience all of this. But a lot of time, and these are, I think they are good news. But there's more to it than just what a gospel a lot of times becomes is this transaction. Now, however, let's jump to the New Testament here. I want you to, what's probably the most popular verse in all the Bible, probably even. John 3:16. Who can quote it? Come on. So famous.
God so loved the world that he gave his own Son, that whoever should believe in him should not perish but have eternal life.
Yep. Okay. Now, I think if you look at what Christ did. That's a very popular, that he came, right, that they may have eternal life. What Jesus came for was to restore that relationship, that fallen, that sinfulness, right? And taking that debt. That debt is what separated us from God. You all mentioned it in all your gospel presentations. That separation, Jesus came along, we did the little bridge, right? He bridged that gap. What he did was allow us to, the king, this coming king that was in Samuel, would bring forgiveness and a restored relationship. But the thing is that needed to be done in order to clear the path for take our hearts, that debt of sin, which was needed to be paid. God paid it through His Son, the Messiah. But what does He promise us in light of that debt? Because that's usually where our gospel presentations usually go. We usually make the gospel about a debt paid. That's a lot of times what we make the gospel about. We make it about a debt paid. There was a separation. There was sinfulness. There was something that took us and separated us from God. And Jesus came that we could bridge that gap and that debt's paid. And I don't have to have that separation anymore. It stopped. Or it may get into, and then one day, the resurrection. You get that to look forward to. But what about this in-between thing? This debt paid, is that the whole of the good news? Or did this lay a path for something else? Is there something more? I would say yes. John 3:16 is a very famous verse, but I want to read you another 3:16 from the very book right before it, Luke 3:16. I think actually this one is, or maybe even, I would put it on equal playing field as John 3:16 is of importance, but it gets kind of passed over a lot of times. Somebody want to read that? Luke 3:16.
John answered them all, saying, I baptize you with water, but he who is mightier than I is coming, the strap of whose sandal I am not worthy to untie. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire.
So John sees this guy coming, knows this guy's coming. There's one that's coming after me. I'm not even worthy. He says, I'm not worthy to untie his sandal. If you know anything about it, just with like a slave, even a Jewish slave, one thing that they weren't required, one thing that they weren't required to do? They weren't required to unstrap somebody's sandal. That was even beneath them. This guy, who Jesus said about him is the greatest among women, right? Greatest born from among women, and not among women, born from women. This is the pinnacle of mankind. This guy says, I'm not even high enough to be a lowly slave who I'm not even allowed to untie his sandals. He sees this guy coming as something new, something different, something wholly different than it's ever come before. And when he comes, what's he going to do? What's he say he's going to do?
Baptize him with the Holy Spirit.
Baptized with Spirit and fire. The sign of this new era, there's something new. This new era is happening that God's creating. And the sign of this new era is going to be what? Baptism of the Spirit. And with fire. There's something, he's going to do something that's going to inaugurate this new era that he's bringing in. And I think what I want to do tonight, I want to say that new era, that new thing, that part of the gospel we leave out, is I want to talk about the gospel of the Spirit. Because if you look at that, back in Ezekiel, what was the promise? It's interesting, we quote a lot of times the new covenant, right, to point to who? Who do we always quote the new covenant, and who do we point toward? Jesus. Interestingly, in those two sets of verses, did you see Messiah really mentioned at all? It's interesting, isn't it? He wasn't really mentioned. But who was mentioned?
Spirit.
The Spirit was mentioned. In the covenant that God's going to make with his people, it's not going to be like the old, this is a new one, it's a better one. Where I'm going to do it all, what's the promise that he's going to do? To do all of those things, he's going to send the Spirit. Now, who laid the one that laid that out, the one that kind of, accomplished this giving, or this new era, is who? Is Jesus. But he's going to give something. Jesus is going to bring something that's going to be good news as past this. And what I want to do, I'm going to give you guys a few verses. I want you to take just a minute, and I want you to pull out from this, what is good news in each of these. I'm going to give each of you two groups again. I'm going to give you 3 sets of verses. And I want you to pull out, what's the good news? What do you see here that you can learn about the Spirit? And they're all going to be from the book of Luke and from the book of Acts. And I want to make a case that the reason why Jesus came was to lay the foundation so he might give the promise, which was the Spirit. The promise was not just Jesus, but the promise that was to be given was the Spirit. So I'll give it to you guys first. Luke 24, write this down, 24, 45 through 49. Acts 1, 4 through 5. And Acts 2, 32 and 33. And 38 and 39. Those go together. We're just going to take a few verses out. For you guys, Acts 11, verses 15 through 18. Acts 11, 15 through 18. Acts 13, 23 through 25. And in Acts 15, 7 through 9. I want you to take just a minute. I want you to write down what are some things there that you learn about the Spirit and how it might be good news. So you got a couple minutes. You guys finished?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go through them in order. I'll start with the ones I gave you all. So, help me here. Okay, Luke 24, 23 through 25. We'll go ahead and read that. Or wait. Oh, I wrote the wrong one. I was looking somewhere else. 45 through 49.
You say, oops.
No, you were right. I just looked up.
Then he opened their minds to understand the Scriptures, and he said to them, Thus it is written, that the Christ would suffer and rise again from the dead on the third day, and that repentance for forgiveness of sins would be proclaimed in his name to all the nations, beginning from Jerusalem. You are witnesses of these things. And behold, I am sending forth the promise of my Father upon you, but you are to stay in the city until you are clothed with power from on high.
All right. So, what does it say? What What was kind of the progression there that he went through, that Jesus was talking about? First, there will be what?
Well, are you talking about like opening your mind, starting back from there, or?
Okay, well, I mean, that to understand. So, what was he saying? Thus, and he said to them, "Thus it was written that what?"
Yeah, that Christ would suffer and rise again.
Okay, so Christ would suffer, he would die, and he'd rise again, right? Good
Yeah.
news of the gospel. For what?
So that we could be able to repent and have forgiveness.
Repentance and get forgiveness of sin, right? Very common part of the gospel. But does Jesus stop there? What's he say?
He says that he's sending forth the promise of the Father.
Ah. Where is this promise of the Father mentioned?
Jeremiah and Ezekiel.
Jeremiah and Ezekiel, right? The promises of the Old Testament. Jesus himself is saying that the promises of the Old Testament were not fully what? They obviously, could it have ended with him? Was he the full promise of the Old Testament? No, because Jesus himself, after his resurrection, is saying what? I'm going to send the one that, I'm going to give you the promise that the Father gave. So it hasn't, I mean, Jesus hasn't completed that full promise yet, has he? There's something more. Is there anything else there?
He gave them instructions to stay in the city until they're clothed with power from on high.
All right, so stay there until you get power from on high, right? Okay. How about the next one? Acts 1, chapter 1, verses 4 and 5. Did you get all that? Did you hear all that, Chase?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Read it?
Yeah.
And while staying with them, he ordered them not to depart from Jerusalem, but to wait for the promise of the Father, which he said, "You heard from me, for John baptized with water, but you will be baptized with the Holy Spirit not many days from now."
But so, Jesus says what? Wait around for the,
Promise.
what
The
promise?
Holy Spirit.
The promise. There's the promise again. Wait for the promise.